Oh, you already did.
Okay, and for those of you who have just joined, I'm going to do a couple things. Please keep your microphones muted during the meeting. And on a hybrid meeting, sometimes it's much more, it's a little bit better quality for you to use the speaker view as you're watching the meeting. It might be a little more satisfying because you can pick up that screen a lot fuller. So those are my two little hints for having a happy hybrid meeting. If you do want to talk, I am going to be monitoring the gallery, and just use the raise your hand function or put your face on and wave at me, and I will be sure that you get recognized to speak. Go ahead.
Outstanding. Welcome to April's general LIFAC meeting. This is our very first hybrid meeting. There are some people here in the audience. You're welcome to be here as well, but we hope this is going to be our new future. So welcome tonight. We are in the Grange live. I will now call the meeting to order. It is 7:01 p.m. Let me first start with introduction of board members. I'm Greg Hall. I am president of LIFAC at present. Alan, you got the camera on you, Alan? There's Alan. Alan is our vice president. We also have our treasurer, Paul Davis, who is on out there on raising his hand for those of you in the Zoom meeting. Our secretary, Connie Ferry, is sitting beside me here. And two other board members sitting beside me tonight. We have Gail Lorenz and Carol McKinney, both general board members. And we're missing a couple board members, I think, tonight. We're missing Victoria Souza. Are you out there in Happy Land, Victoria? I don't see you up there. And we're missing Bill.
Yeah.
Okay, noted.
Yeah,
Yes. Mary. Yeah, she's waving. I'm supposed to catch that like she catches it. Mary Ross, who is actually running the entire Zoom thing between her and Alan. Alan Crum is Batman. I'm going to say it. He's Batman. Between the two of them, they've made this all really possible with some really super good tech. So with that, we've introduced our board members. Are there any first-time guests that have never been to a LIFAC meeting? Well, our speaker tonight, we happen to have Crispin Colburn from LIFAC, who is going to be speaking here in just a little bit. Our first-time member, he'll get to introduce himself. With that, we'll move on to approval of the agenda.
What's he doing? She just has to make the right.
Oh, watching a meeting.
I can make them ahead of time, but we can have somebody make next to right.
Somebody has a microphone on, would you please mute? Please ensure your microphones are muted. Approval of the agenda. The agenda is available on the website and has been sent on out via other forms. You have that in front of you. Can you scroll that down just a little bit? It's pretty simple, straightforward one tonight. I do have one addition, a last minute addition. Underneath new business, I will be adding Catherine Shornick regarding small aircraft traversing the island. Very interesting. I didn't think about it in the same sort of way. She's been working on this for 3 years, to bring a little bit of question to us that we'll see where we go with that. So moving on, are there any other additions to tonight's agenda? I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as published and the change for tonight. Have a motion. Do I have a second? And seconded. Any discussion? Motion carries by acclamation if there's no objection. Moving on. Let's go on into the approval of the meeting minutes of March 23rd, 2022. Again, these have been sent on out and are available on the website. Are there any questions, changes, or additions to the meeting minutes from our March meeting? Give those on Zoom another minute to be able to ensure that if there are any questions, they are able to raise their hand. I would entertain a motion then to approve the meeting minutes of March 23rd, 2022. Carol made the motion. Do I have a second? Carol seconded. Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion. Are there any objection? Motion carries by acclamation. Moving on, the fun stuff, the treasurer's report. Let's bring Paul Davis on up. And Paul,
You'll have to unmute.
you'll have to unmute. Are you unmuted, Paul?
There we go.
There we go.
We still have a smattering of tome revenue, subscriptions and tome ads. That'll continue a little bit through the year like that. Our expenses, the big items are about $3,000 paid grants to the church, Grange, and Meals on Wheels. Our general fund balance is now 19,458. And the anticipated expenses through the year are 8,078. About half of that is for the tome. Any questions?
Hearing no questions, we'll move on with the agenda. Thank you very much, Paul.
I have a question. So what's happening with what we didn't use for the tome for the last 4 months? We have not had a paper tome and we have not rented the Grange. So where's that money going? Sorry,
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question.
Paul, we have not had a printed tome for 4 months. And we have not rented the Grange for 4 months to fold the tome. So
Oh,
what's happening with that money?
Mary Jane, the reason we aren't folding the foam because I'm a little sissy and I do not want to catch the virus from you or anyone else.
It's not the question of why. It's the
What's the
question of where's the money going?
Where's the money is in our treasury.
Okay, thanks.
I mean, where else could it be?
Let me go one step further. We have contracted with the Grange for our meetings here, general meetings for the rest of the year. That will be through June, July, and August. We take a recess from general meetings. It'll be September, October, and again, November and December. We do not meet, but we are contracting with the Grange for that. And when we get to the point where we're able to do paper tomes again and fold them, because we get Paul convinced he doesn't need to be a sissy, we'll take care of him, or we'll just have him do his part and we'll do it here. Then we'll get back to that. But in the meantime, the money sits in the reserves in the account that is accounted for in his end there because we haven't spent it. So moving on now from the treasurer's report, we'll go on into old business. Spring cleanup results. Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable.
I'm muted. Fuck you.
Okay, then.
What do you want next? Anything on screen?
Alan, the on button is on the very bottom end of the microphone.
Yeah,
So we know what
I got
we're doing.
another dead mic here, so I'm gonna hand Gail this one. Go ahead, put her on up. Gail was, Gail Adams chaired the spring cleanup, and we did absolutely incredible job this year. We had a lot of participation. Matter of fact, the most participation we have ever had, and we did it all online with no snacks, no food, and people hauled their own trash. Absolutely incredible.
Can't hear a thing.
We can't hear Gail speaking.
Gail, is a microphone turned on? Look at the back end of it. There's a little tiny switch. Nope, not working.
No, can't hear you.
Still can't hear you.
Nope.
Is the light on the microphone on the side of the microphone?
Turn, mute Mark, use Paul. Hold on. Why did we lose it? 1, 2, 3, that's running,
Now, can you hear me?
say something again.
Yes.
Hello?
Yes.
You can hear me now.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So the roadside cleanup was awesome. We had about 120 people and it was great. Everybody went out as they wanted to in the morning, which I think was popular. Some of us went out real early, others felt like going a little later in the day. Everything was done by about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And about 70 to 80 people used the Clean Swell program so that we could track a lot of the kinds of trash and all of that Heritage Trust set up for us. And it was super successful and lots of fun. And we probably want to use some of what we did this year and last year in next year's, but add in a little bit more to make it even more fun.
Maybe a little food. What a thought. Thank you, Islanders, for all the work you did. We have a much cleaner island as a result. Moving on to reports. I have Connie Berry here who's going to give us a report on Meals on Wheels dry dock plan.
This year for dry dock in May, we're going to do the same thing that we did in September, which is the Meals on Wheels clients have been asked to order additional meals and have them on hand to get them through dry dock. What we have been able to do is with some LIFAC funding is to be able to provide fresh milk for those clients who normally receive milk. So they have frozen meals on hand and we will be delivering milk to them on the 2 Mondays of dry dock.
That's great, Connie. And the milk will be stored here at the Grange. It makes things very convenient. We'll work it all on out to make sure that all of our recipients find fresh milk. Let's talk about dry dock too, because dry dock starts next week. If you want to know more about what's going on with dry dock this year and what you need to be prepared for starting May 6th, you'll find it all on our website at ourlummiisland.org. We got it up?
Yep.
Okay, there it is, ourlummiisland.org, early dry dock, May 2022. We highly recommend that you go and check that on out for the simple reason there's a lot of information that's going to be new and a lot of things that are going to affect all of us in a different time of year. So do go to our website and take a look. Let's move on to new business. I'm sorry, the letter. Let's go back. We received an absolutely wonderful letter from Meals on Wheels. Connie, what do you think about that letter? It was sent to Dear Paul.
Well, Paul is the treasurer. That's why it was sent to him. He sent them the check.
But we did get a marvelous letter in from them. We did fund them this year to the tune of $1,000. Meals on Wheels is one of our sponsored programs by LIFAC here on the island. So thank you very much to them and glad to have Meals on Wheels still serving and moving through this year.
And a big thank you to all the volunteers on the island who deliver meals on Monday.
That's a big one, especially with gas prices up. So going on into new business, Catherine Shornick did something rather unique. She filed a question from our website that came through to admins, and from there came through to me. And when I took a look at it, I said, well, this is interesting. Planes flying low over the island. I don't think much about that myself. And it's kind of like, okay, well, we're on flight routes, we're on a variety of things, and people fly. But I want to know more because she's been at this for 3 years. So if you would bring Catherine on up. Hi, Catherine.
Hello.
Good. Tell me what's going on here and what have you been doing about it? We've only got.
Okay, well, thank you. Thanks for making time. I'm not going to go into a lot of the details, but and I haven't been working on this full time at all, but over the last few years, intermittently. So basically, I just in the interest of time, I wrote out some notes here, but I'd like to, I really appreciated you making time on the agenda. I'm hoping to call attention to and explore community assistance regarding the volume of small aircraft that fly over the island. Specific concerns include frequency, altitude, safety and health, privacy, and noise. Medical helicopters, the Coast Guard, Homeland Security, and other agency aircraft regularly fly over the island, and absolutely the islanders support and rely on these emergency rescue and medical services. So that's not of issue. The concerns surround small private planes, and many of those used by regional air carriers, which are primarily San Juan Airlines and Island Air. And then there's contractors, but mostly it's, well, a huge amount of just small aircraft pilots. Lummi Island sits in the direct path between Friday Harbor and Bellingham Airport. Most small planes fly just north of Lummi Mountain across the narrowest part of the island, and some over scenic estates, and many clip over the north end of the island. Most often, regular flights begin around 7:15 in the morning, year-round, often two planes at the same time or in short succession. Lately, they've been starting just after 6. Sometimes they go until 11 or later at night. Most fly within 1,100 and 1,400 feet above sea level. Periodically, planes pass at 800 feet or less, and where I live, 800 feet equates to about 580 feet above my home. Individual attempts to communicate with regional airlines and the airport have been unproductive, and the FAA is generally unresponsive. Last summer, more than 30 island residents petitioned for a Lummi Island seat on VIAC, which is the Bellingham Airport Advisory Committee, which has roughly 25 seats and advises the Port of Bellingham on Bellingham Airport issues. Our request was denied by BIAC, the airport director, and our port commissioner, Bobby Briscoe. Interestingly, the Port of Orcas has a longstanding policy that asks pilots, when safety conditions allow, to avoid flying over Orcas and neighboring islands. A community organization could have much more influence than individuals in trying to address concerns, to coordinate with other regional communities. Fact sheets could be helpful in raising awareness and hopefully to slowly influence pilot habits. Perhaps most importantly, a group such as LIFAC could develop and use a consistent, realistic, positive, and constructive message, such as, when conditions permit, please consider varying routes over the island and flying at higher altitudes. As well, the pending arrival of electric aviation presents an opportunity for regional airports to participate in the development and rollout of this quieter and more environmentally friendly technology. This is an important time for citizens in smaller communities to join the conversation regarding any changes to FAA rules and pilot practices that impact privacy and safety concerns. I've conducted a fair amount of research and had many conversations regarding this issue, all of which I'm happy to share. I hope LICA will consider participation in coordinating information and developing some constructive communication. And sorry, my cat's going a little crazy here, but thanks so much for your time.
Catherine, I'm going to invite you now to our May board meeting where we will discuss this further and see if we can't put together an advisory committee. We've done that for a public dock. We have done that for traffic calming, for a variety of other issues. And maybe we'll even do a survey to find out how many more it does affect on the island. Thank you so much for tonight. And this conversation is far from over. Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, I'm going to say two things. This is our very first hybrid meeting. We need to hear back from you, whether or not hybrid meetings work. We have a few people here in the audience. Next month, I'm going to do something. We won't be able to get to potlucks, I don't think yet. We want to get back to having potluck dinners here and then go into the meeting. But if nothing else, we can do snacks and coffee, which I'll do next month myself. With that, we have a presentation tonight. We asked LIFAC to provide us with an update. What's going on with LIFAC? Chris Colburn, who's the president of LIFAC, was generous enough to say, yeah, I'll come talk to you. I'll share some information. So having Chris here, the president of LIFAC, having the source at hand comes in wonderfully handy. Chris does have to make an 8 o'clock meeting. I'm going to let him present. We'll have some Q&A, and then we'll move on to the important stuff. Paul Davis giving away money. With that, Chris.
A little of this and a little of that. Let's see. To get started, thank you for the invitation. Mike Kenzie came along with me from the committee. He's a current committee member, and Raymond Blake, past chair, immediate past chair, is here. So it's great to have us take up half the audience. And maybe we ought to think about snacks. I don't know. So I don't have a big prepared presentation like Kathleen's. What we did bring is the two single sheet. It's really background information about LIFAC, and then one is a timeline. One is a great little kind of narrative write-up that Mike Skehan wrote that gives sort of good background about the development and work of the Ferry Committee, and in particular, how we got to where we are now with on the verge of replacing the ferry.
This will both be on the website.
Yeah. And I did bring paper copies, hoping for more.
We were hoping for more of an audience.
Well, and so another thing I'd like to say is just we'd sure like to invite people to come in person to our hybrid meetings. It's a big help to get together in person, and they work pretty well that way, some of us. I guess, so that's the background information. A little other background information is just a reminder that the Lummi Island Ferry Advisory Committee was established in 2012 by the county council to advise the council. So we serve the county council, and we don't direct public works, and they follow the direction of the county executive. So there's sort of two functions there, and we're essentially serving the legislative function. So we're here to advise them on plans and be a channel for the Lummi Island community to be in touch, but also, and well, I'll ramble a little bit on this, but so I'm not an islander. I'm a mainland representative. Right now we have 2 mainland members of the committee, and the ordinance that formed the advisory committee specifically reserved 2 or 3 positions on the 7-seat committee for mainland members. And because that's part of the whole county, we're citizens. And that's one of my little things about serving as chair. I originally didn't think it was that great of an idea for a non-islander to chair the committee. I've served on the committee a long time as a mainlander. There's a mandated year off when you serve 2 full terms. But at any rate, I was persuaded that maybe I could be useful. But one of my points about this is that even though county citizens don't live out here, county citizens are, they represent a commercial constituency. They represent people who use the island and come to the island for friends and recreation, all kinds of stuff like that. But as it relates to the chief in particular, and especially as we've moved into the replacement phase, and we spent years, many people, many hours were spent working on planning for the new ferry. The county council adopted their resolution and committed to replacing the ferry 4 years ago. And we've been working on that since, on the plans, on lining up funding. And so I started talking about mainlander representation on the committee. And so that's where, especially in replacing a 40 to 60 year vessel, that's a big footprint in time for a vessel like this. And in a sense, that's where other county citizens have a real stake in those decisions and how they get made. And an example of that is the question about propulsion and fuel. County citizens have a real interest in air quality, even if they don't live out here. And so I bring that up because it's just something, kind of a reminder that the scope of the replacement project, which will outlast me certainly, and many of us probably, is going to have a long effect on people who live in Whatcom County. So that's a long ramble into some of that background. I think I told Mike he should interrupt me if I ramble too far, if I miss something. But so the big update that isn't on those timelines so much, or in Mike gets us most of the way there, but the immediate matters now are that, number one, as I said, the council committed to replacing the ferry. Many of you probably know, but for the benefit of people who don't, in the mid, like 2004 to 2006 or 7, the county had funding to replace the ferry. The folks who lived on the island couldn't get together on the design, and it ended up that the county council decided not to replace the ferry then, and lost funding, 15, 17 years ago. So we don't want to do that this time around. And there's been so much work put into the process of conceptual design and getting commitments. So where we are right now is, in case many of you know this, but I'll just recap. The first money in for the replacement ferry was the capital replacement surcharge that went on to fares. It's like 3 years ago, something on that order.
2021.
Oh, that recent. Only last May. And some discussion about it took another couple of years. But so that was the first funding identified for the ferry replacement. As of this recently passed legislative session, the state transportation budget committed another $5.3 million. It's addressed to the docks. So that's part of that whole modernization project. The County Public Works has just like 3 weeks ago, submitted a grant application for a RAISE grant to the U.S. Department of Transportation for the project, for a large portion of the funding. But of course, in a project like this, you have to go to every possible source. So that application is in. I think the county expects to hear a decision in the fall on that. This summer, the Public Works will, they have in the works an application for additional funding through the County Roads Access Board. That's a state entity that advises the legislative branch. So they have a meeting this summer to decide what they will move forward with, and Public Works is working on obtaining funding through that process. That's a real focus for Islanders, and in the upcoming month, Mike has been working on a plan to raise awareness with legislators, 40th and 42nd districts, I think, everybody, all our state legislators about that, because next year, somewhere around this time, the Roads Access Board will meet this summer and determine what they're going to move forward to the legislature next year. And then the legislature makes a decision about a year from now. As I should have probably mentioned earlier, I'm really hitting the high points. All of the detail for all of this is available through the County Public Works website. If you are so inclined, you can, the entire RAISE grant application is online and available for your reading enjoyment. I believe it's 800 or 900 pages. It has 6 appendices, and there's, on the Ferry Committee, we went through a lot of that material, but now it's all in a package. And so if you have a particular interest, you can look for it in that application. But that summarizes and brings together all these threads that they've literally taken the Ferry Committee the last 6 years to work on. So Mike will be reaching out to everybody possible to get letters to legislators in the next, 4 to 6 weeks, so that we get it on their radar, and then we'll also be working with the CRAB board. What did I miss? I just think this is a really exciting time, but everything's coming into focus and kind of coming to a head, and years of work and many, many hours of committee and public works work are, coming to fruition one way or another. We don't know which funds we'll get, which ones we won't. When there's adequate package put together, the Public Works will put out an RFP for a design and build contract for the vessel. It will take about 2 years to build, I understand. And the county resolution I mentioned about replacing it, it commits the county to have the replacement ferry in operation by December 31, 2026. That's not very far away.
I would suggest adding one other thing that, people say, oh, is this the right design, or is this, because we have spent a lot of time on the design. But the thing that really has in the past kept me moving forward is the fact that there's a deadline, I think at 2028, EPA is requiring the chief to retrofit with brand new engines at the cost of $4 million if we don't get this new one in place instead. Yeah.
And that could incur other regulatory matters, even from the Coast Guard. So we really want to bring this to closure. And I believe that in terms of the funding package, Public Works and the county council particularly will have to look at the package, that what's there, what the gaps are, and then the county may have some decisions about expenditures and budgeting they need to do. With that, I guess that was more time than I thought maybe we'd spend. But I guess the other thing is Mike and I are really interested in Q&A from participants, either the vast crowds here or those out there in the digital world. We probably don't have time to get into a lot of detail, but we can listen and maybe refer you. I do encourage people to refer to the Public Works website for detail and history on a lot of the matters.
I'm going to go ahead and direct this on out to our Zoom audience first before I ask some of the questions that I have hip pocketed on off. So are there any questions on out there from those people participating via Zoom?
This is Carrie and my husband, John. I don't have a question, but I just want to thank the people who have been on the committee. It's just amazing amount of work that you put into this, and I just really appreciate it so much. And I would hope that with all your expertise and the time that you've put into this, that you could make the decision and not have to go through getting the opinion and the okay from the rest of us. I just think that for me and for my husband, whatever you decide, let's go for it. And let's not waste the amount of years that we've wasted already. So, but thanks again so much for just amazing amount of work and time you put into this. Appreciate it so much.
I'm going to have to echo that myself a little bit with what Carrie said. Building consensus is tough enough in this community for almost anything. Try to put a flagpole up. Trust me. Consensus can sometimes be a double-edged sword. It's nice to have that, but you saw what happened 15, 16 years ago. Do that again. We do that again. You're guaranteed the $4 million. You're not guaranteed having the $4 million. You're guaranteed running out of time and a ferry. And if you don't have a ferry, you're stuck. So somewhere along the line, it needs to be, we made a decision.
Mike wants to say something.
Thank you, Carrie. I want to underscore what you said by pointing out that in 10 years of this committee, it was preceded, by the way, with the Ferry Task Force by, I think, 2 years. And then there was a non-island group too. But I wanted to point out over this period of time, LIFAC itself has had over 100 public meetings, and the county and the consultants have had numerous. This has been a huge, transparent, and open process to involve any islanders who wanted that opportunity.
I can appreciate that entirely. Do we have any other questions from out in the Zoom world?
Kathy Shornick has a question. Catherine?
Hi, yeah, just a real quick, also many thanks to the committee, an unbelievable amount of work. I guess I have a comment and a question. One comment or observation is that I do think, I know I have a hard time making the meetings, but I do try to watch the recordings of them later. And I think there's a number of people that do. So even though it's not a participatory experience, I hope you'll remember, be heartened perhaps that there's more people paying attention than you might feel. My question goes to you said something about the emergency, like in 2025, that there's other equipment that has to be installed on the current ferry. If a new ferry isn't in place, do you mean that a decision has to be made about the new ferry? Because even if you made a decision tomorrow and we had the funding, I'm not sure we would have it by 2025, right? Is that going to happen anyway?
Let's see, so the resolution by the county council committed to having the new replacement ferry in service by the end of the year 2026. What Rama mentioned was, if that didn't happen,
Oh, okay.
then
Okay.
there's a hard deadline of 2028 where the current diesel engines on the current ferry must be replaced.
Okay.
They can't continue operating with them. So that's an extra caution.
Mhm.
And that kind of underscores why why everybody's so focused on the end of 2026. Just another response to Carrie's comments and what Mike said is just a little perspective for me is that before I retired a couple of years ago, I worked my whole career in various forms of community transportation, including for the WTA and other organizations in the Northwest. And I've had the good fortune to be able to serve on the committee through much of this time, except for my year off. And the work by Public Works, by the consulting firm, this is an internationally known consulting firm who the county contracted with to work on this, and with the ferry committee and the participation of islanders, it's unparalleled in terms of involvement, in terms of transparency, all of that. Everyone's just done an incredibly great job. And Lummi Island is now, with all this process, is kind of known for having great community involvement. And that's a real tribute to everybody. And it includes the county and the third-party consultant. So that's all.
So the
We
one,
have iPad. That's Beth and Ray Lewis.
Yeah, hi, this is Beth. I also want to echo the sentiment for all the people that have worked on this. I know it's been going on since the early aughts with the original Ferry Task Force that formed LIFAC. But I wanted to point out that during my days on LIFAC, there was an extensive public process for taking opinions and talking about what kind of ferry we're going to have. So it's not just LIFAC and the county making a decision in a vacuum. We had many, many public meetings and got public comment on that took a couple years to do. So it wasn't done in a vacuum. And LIFAC has driven that community support, and it's very much appreciated.
Thank you.
so the one,
I have a question.
Alan,
So that 4 million, if it got used on the engine, would take away from replacing the ferry. So that's one of the reasons it's really critical not to do that.
Oh, well, yeah. And, but actually, I mean, my perspective is that by 2026, 2028, it's a safety matter, even running that long. It's a quality of service matter, even up to 2026. Just in the last 3 years, I've seen more unplanned outages, more repair. We know there's more maintenance expense. That's not a straight line curve. It's getting steeper. And, you know, marine vessels like this are built to last 40 to 60 years. Guimas Ferry is getting replaced at around 40 years, I think. And we're all, it turned 60 this year, or is turning 60 this year. So my anxiety level goes up a little bit with this. I just think even aside from the dollar question, the service and safety question is a big deal.
I can't raise my hand here, so I don't know what the deal
Okay.
is.
Go
But
ahead, MJ.
I have a couple questions. You know, Rich Fry put a lot of interesting proposals to the last LIFAC meeting. On the other hand, I'm sorry, but I'm an engineer, and I do a lot of stuff with maintenance. And I think that there are a lot of maintenance issues with the ferry. And I'm wondering, you know, I know in the end, we need a new ferry. But, you know, if we took better care of the one that we have, excuse me, and we could do a much better job. I'm trying to get information from the county about their maintenance practices, because I'm sorry, that's what I do for a living. So I do know about that and about reliability. And I get that we probably in the end need a bigger ferry. I'm not so sure about that, but anyway. But you know, there's still a lot of stuff that we could be doing, or the county could be doing, to help us to get us to that point. So okay, I'll shut up now and you can.
I hate to have to wind this on up, but I promised Chris
You did.
that he'd be able to get to the ferry.
Oh yeah,
at
he
8
wants
o'clock.
to go home.
And there are questions that I have of, gee, it'd sure be nice for customer service if we could go back to having transactions on board. And it would save us money who buy them online.
And so noted, this stuff has come up before. I just, at this point, all of that kind of questions and interest about operations can be directed straight to Public Works.
Thank
They
you.
need
That
to
was what I wanted to
respond,
hear.
And all of those are legitimate matters. They're not all necessarily LIFAC business.
I
So
understand.
I'm gonna
Thank
have to
you.
say-
And we appreciate it. Thank you so much for having, taking the time and coming on in.
And if people want to talk further.
Thanks, Chris.
I'd like
Thank you.
to,
Thank you very much for the invitation, and come to the next LIFAC in person.
Hey, and let us know. And gee, we have this marvelous thing called ourlummiisland.org where we put up stuff like that.
Okay, folks, see you.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
I want to add one punctuation mark to everything Chris just said. At our last meeting last month, in a little conversation out in this hallway with Roland Middleton, who's the project manager, there's been over $600,000 committed by the county to get where we are today on all this stuff. So it's just a massive amount of work, and that didn't count salaries.
Well, it's our money. It isn't government's money. It's our money.
Right.
Just the way it works. How do we want to spend it? That brings me to my favorite part of the meeting, every one of these meetings. Paul Davis, let's give away some money. It'd be nice for a change. We haven't had a winner for a few months.
Okay. Unmuted and I'm digging in here for one single chit. And it is number 447. Write that down. Okay.
We lost you there, Paul.
Paul, you muted.
You muted yourself again. Paul, we can't hear you. Paul, we can't hear you. You're muted.
There.
That's good.
There you go.
Okay, keep an eye on that microscope. That number drawn was bigger than the number of people we have subscribed, so I have to draw again.
$290.
$290. Back in the can. $290. Oh my word. Oh my goodness. Carol meets.
She's not. Yeah.
Did you
And
hear that?
she's not here, Paul. So
Not
next,
here?
next month, $45. Yeah. I want to thank you all very much. This was our very first. Next month, there will be snacks. I'm not even going to tell you what, but it'll be good. And coffee. Feel free to come on down to the Grange. We are, although the sign says 6:30, we're going to start at 7 until we get potlucks guaranteed. And if we get to that point, I guarantee we'll let you know. Thank you so much for your attendance tonight, for showing on up, and keep on in with the island. Watch and listen to.
Greg, a question.
Uh-oh, a question.
Yeah.
So
Are you aware that microphone number 5 is non-functional?
Microphone number. They're all working.
There's a number 6 missing. I mean, number 2 is missing, but they're all working, Paul.
Number 2 is missing. We don't know where it went.
Oh, if one is missing, it'd be the one that's bad.
Always.
That's the dead one.
You got 4 good microphones, right? Or 5.
Just remember, check on in with ourlummiisland.org. That's where you're going to find the information, what's happening here on the island. Thank you all for your attendance tonight. Have a great night.
Thank you.